This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Round the cauldron thrice we go, moving fast and moving slow. Potions bubble, candles burn, as the wheel begins to turn. Truth we seek and truth we know, embers of the fire glow. Spirit, join me in this space, join me in a warm embrace.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me here for episode 10 of Round the Cauldron. My name is Megan, and I'm here to shed light on Wicca from a modern perspective. Join me here every Monday for tips, tricks, education, and sometimes just a nice little chat. If you like what you hear, please consider leaving a review wherever you listen because it helps other people find me. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Round the Cauldron, Twitter at Round the Cauldron without the D, and at my website roundthecauldron.com, where you'll also find links and show notes for each episode. So today we're going to be talking about something a little different. I know in my last episode I said that I was going to talk about tarot for this episode, but that's sort of been put off just a little bit because I feel like this topic is something that needs to be talked about. And before we really jump too much into it, just a little warning here for some people. We are going to be talking about mental illness and mental health. So if that is something that you might have some issues with, this episode might not be for you. Just so you know. So a little background about myself and my experience with mental illness. I have pretty much always had some form of depression. I can remember being young and just being sad for no reason. I can remember a particular time where I got my hair done and I got it colored, and I think maybe like 12 or 13 or something like that, and it didn't turn out the way that I wanted, and I just had like a mental breakdown on the floor of my bedroom, and it wasn't all just about my hair. I mean, it was like every emotion at that time coming in. Nothing was going right, and I just wasn't feeling like myself, and I had a breakdown, and it's something that I've dealt with most of my life. I dealt with self-harm in my adolescent years. I have a history of childhood sexual trauma. I'm not going to talk about any of that, just so you guys know. Just to give you some background into myself. More recently, after I had my daughter, I had severe postpartum depression. Now, if you don't know what postpartum depression is, it's basically depression after giving birth, but like on steroids. And if it's not necessarily if it's not caught, but it can turn into something called postpartum psychosis, which is essentially birth-induced schizophrenia, I believe. But the statistics for postpartum depression are 1 in 5 women. 1 in 5. Like, that's a lot of people. And so with having postpartum depression after I had my daughter, it made being a mom really difficult. I didn't bond with my daughter like you would expect. I didn't want to be near her. I didn't want to hold her. Like I didn't want to do anything, which really shocked me just because growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be a mom, and I felt like my body and my brain were really letting me down at that moment. I got put on medication, and it worked for a little bit, and then eventually I quit taking it, and then I tried the natural ways, the St. John's wort. I tried the meditation and the exercise and all of those things that people tell you to do, that when people are against the pharmaceutical world, like, oh, don't take those pills, do this instead. Yeah, I tried all of that stuff. Then eventually I was remedicated, which is fine, and I was doing really well. And then I moved to Oregon, and I didn't have insurance, so I knew I would be running out of my pills, so I tapered myself off because I didn't know when my insurance would start again. I don't recommend doing that. Please don't do that. Always talk to a doctor whenever possible. Anyways, after doing that, things were going really well. And then here in the last month and a half, like a month and a half ago, things started getting really bad again. So guess what? I'm medicated again. And things are really good. I take SSRIs, I take an antidepressant, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed. There's no need to be. And I know there's a really big stigma around mental health and any sort of mental illness not being treated the way that like a physical illness is, but you will not find that here on my podcast. There is no stigma on here around the cauldron. None. Yeah. So that's my little rambly explanation of why I really wanted to talk about this today, because it does eventually tie back in with faith. And the first thing that I really need to say is, don't sacrifice your mental health for your faith. Your mental health is important. I mean, your faith is important too, but without your mental health, your faith isn't going to get you nowhere. You need to be in the right state of mind to practice your faith. And if you're not, so I think the main issue that I want to press with you guys is, just because your faith might be about the natural world and being eco-friendly and preserving the earth and doing everything as natural as possible, doesn't mean that you cannot medicate under the direction of a doctor for something that you need help with. Like, I'm Wiccan, and I believe in doing things as natural as possible and being eco-friendly. However, I also know that sometimes your body and your brain don't work the way they're supposed to, and you need help. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting help from a doctor and taking medication that can help you. There's nothing wrong with that. Another thing that I want to say, which is kind of something double, I guess, don't self-diagnose, but always self-advocate. Always. So I work in the medical field. I'm not clinical staff. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse or anything like that. But I see a lot of things that have to do with people and their illnesses and why they came to the hospital and why they're seeing a doctor. And I can tell you that doctors like an educated patient, but they get really frustrated when the patient is trying to be the doctor. Now, this walks a very fine line between doing your research and Googling your symptoms and coming up with a diagnosis. But on the other side of that, you always want to advocate for yourself. You know the way you're feeling. You know how it's affecting your life. And you need to stand up for yourself and be honest with your doctor, so that they can get you the help that you need and the help that will be the best method for you specifically. I don't mean for this episode to turn into a medical advice, because I'm not a doctor. So always talk to your doctor first before doing anything that could impact your health. So there's there's my disclaimer. And then since our faith, since Wicca is nature-based and about, partly about living naturally and preserving the earth and being one with the cycles of the earth, we really want to medicate in a healthy way, but medicating in a healthy way does not negate the need for medication. So now that I've got all that out of the way, let me just get a drink of my coffee here really quick, because I'm doing that thing that I said I wouldn't do, and I'm recording again on Sunday, the day before the episode goes live, because I like to torture myself. No, but when I normally record on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, we were just all super tired and life just really got in the way, so I put it off until today because I was going to do it yesterday, but yesterday was my boyfriend's birthday, so it was all about him and what he wanted to do, which is totally fine. So here I am up in the morning recording my podcast and talking to you guys about a kind of heavy topic. It's perfect for a Sunday morning with my coffee. So yeah, bringing this back around to Wicca and why it's relevant to Wicca is because sometimes you really need to stop and recognize what you're capable of in that moment. I really like to use the spoon theory, and if you've never heard of the spoon theory, I will link to the article written by the gal who came up with the spoon theory. Her name's Christine Miserandino. I think I'm saying that right. But the spoon theory is a way of describing energy as a resource for people with mental illness. And I have something else here from a website called Practical Pain Management that I'm going to read to you about the spoon theory, and it's got a really neat infographic that I will link to. It says, 15 years ago, lupus patient Christine Miserandino felt that words were insufficient to adequately communicate to able-bodied people what it is like to struggle daily with chronic illness. Instead, she used 12 spoons in a cafe as a metaphor for her daily energy stores and gave the spoons to her friend, taking one back every time an activity like taking a shower or getting dressed was mentioned. The message gradually got through to Christine's friend, who was shocked by the revelations of the experiment. Strategic spoon management is crucial for people living with chronic pain and illness, but they can utilize a few tactics to make their condition easier to bear. For instance, they might batch cook on a day off so that there are ready-made meals waiting for them on hectic days where cooking could present as a struggle. Also, it helps to keep a stock of food close to your bed for days when the pain is at its worst. At least this means you won't need to get up to eat if there's nobody else around. So originally, spoon theory was created for somebody living with a chronic pain, but as time's gone on, it has become relevant for anybody living with any sort of chronic illness, whether physical or mental. And I think the spoon theory is really relevant to Wicca when you're dealing with a mental illness, because, sometimes you've gone through all of your spoons for the day and it's a full moon and you really, really want to do your full moon ritual, but it would cost too many spoons that you would not have for the next day. Because sometimes even doing little things take up a lot of energy. So I believe that in Wicca, the gods know what you're going through and they know what you're capable of. And they're not here to reprimand you when you absolutely cannot do the thing that you said you were going to do when it comes to practicing your faith. They know that you struggle, and they know that sometimes it's not possible, and that's okay. So I don't want anybody to feel like they're a bad witch or a bad Wiccan because they said that they were going to do a ritual or do their meditation or what have you at the end of the day for that day, and then when that time comes you just can't do it because you have no energy left. There's nothing wrong with that. I struggle with this all the time, and I really struggle with feeling that way because I know in my heart that this is something that I truly believe and something that I take joy in, but on some days I just can't do it. Some days it's hard to even get my daughter ready for bed, and so on those days I don't have the energy to do a full-blown ritual or to do a meditation or a tarot reading because it's too energetically draining on me. And on those days I have to just lay in bed and do nothing. They don't happen very often anymore. I still struggle with not being able to do any of the things, but I'm getting better, I guess, at the mental aspect of it, and realizing that just because I can't do the things when I say the things need to be done doesn't mean that I'm a bad Wiccan. I mean, look at me when I'm recording right now. Life happened, and I fell asleep on Tuesday at like 8 o'clock at night when I normally record, and here I am on a Sunday, first thing in the morning when I wake up, I'm sitting down and I'm recording because I enjoy doing this. I enjoy sitting here and recording my podcast and talking to you guys and drinking my coffee, and I just needed to make time to do it. Just because it didn't happen on the day that I needed it to happen doesn't mean it's not going to happen eventually. And the same thing can be said for practicing your faith when you have a mental illness. I think this episode is going to be a little shorter than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. I can't really go too much into all of this without getting very preachy, and I don't want to be preachy. It's too early in the morning to be preachy, and time just changed, and it's not cool. Just know that if you have a mental illness, that doesn't make you a bad Wiccan. It doesn't make you a bad pagan. It doesn't make you a bad person. And just because you struggle doing the things that you enjoy doing doesn't mean that you're a bad person either. Sometimes there are times when we have to power through and get things done, but most times we eventually pay for it later. But I think that's about all I can say. All I can say with this. I just needed to get it off my chest, I guess, and have a chat with you guys about mental health It's okay to take medicine, guys. It's okay. It's okay if you don't take medicine. It's okay if you try to do things the natural way. It's okay if you don't. I'm not here to judge you. I'm the last person that should be judging you. Nobody else should be judging you either. If you guys don't have a good support system and you need somebody to talk to or somebody to reach out to or somebody to just listen, talk to me. I'm here for you. Send me a DM, send me a message on Facebook, find me on Twitter, email me. You guys can email me at roundthecauldron@gmail.com. And I will be here for you. Okay? So thank you guys for listening to this episode. I know it was really short. I'm sorry. I promise I will talk about tarot next week. I gotta go through and write it all out because I'm that kind of person that if I don't have notes and I don't have things written out that I want to talk about, I will forget. I will forget things. And that's probably why this episode is so short, because my notes are really, really short and I didn't write it all out and I didn't plan it very well. But I still wanted to get on here and talk to you guys. So if you like what you hear Round the Cauldron, please consider supporting the podcast for as little as $1 a month. Oh my goodness. At patreon.com/roundthecauldron. You guys can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until next time, everyone. Bye.